All right. I appreciate you all bearing with us with a couple last minute changes. We want to make sure there are several people who had submitted a request to speak, but had not gotten final confirmation. We want to make sure that they were taken care of before we started this public comment session. Before we get started here, I want to open up with a word of prayer. I would have Cedric Coley, youth pastor. Youth pastor, Cedric Coley, to come lead us in a word of prayer as we get this meeting started.
Thank you, Chairman. Board members, members of the public, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, God of all creation, we thank you for gathering us here safely today. And we thank you for this opportunity to join together to reinforce the public library system. We thank you, Most High God, for being our honored guest here today. And we thank you, Most High God, great Ancient of Days, for giving the board members wisdom and understanding and discernment to make the right decisions for not only the young at heart, but everyone in between. And we ask these things in your Son's name, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And then if you'll stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge, salute, I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So with that, we're going to open up, call this meeting to order and open up the public comment period. I want to thank you all for being here. I know many of you are like me, who come from all across the state. In Alabama, it's a lot bigger when you're getting up at 5 or 6 in the morning to make your way to Montgomery. So I appreciate you all being here, taking your time, sacrificing your time, so that your voice be heard in this process. It is through open dialogue and through open debate that we grow the society and that we are able to best serve the public. So I appreciate you taking your time to be here. I also appreciate the thousands of people who sent in public comment and took the time to write letters to this board. It's something that we, as I speak for each of us, and I say we take that seriously. We appreciate the time, we appreciate the effort, and we appreciate citizens being involved in the process of government, because government was created to serve the people. And that is the grand American experiment that we all enjoy the fruits of. And this, I know that I feel this board is committed to continuing that grand American tradition. So thank you all for being here and for this public comment period. It's an honor to have each one of you here. A few ground rules before we get started, or Katie, are you gonna do any ground rules? Should I lay them out? I'm going to lay it out. So it's going to be a fairly easy process. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be reading out the list, so I'll call each speaker when their time is. You will come up to the microphone, you will address the board. You will have 2 minutes. There will be a clock in the back of the room where the board gets rolled. There'll be a clock up here so you can see your time as it ticks down. There will be a bell if you go over time. We ask for respect, and we try to keep this a fair process for all those participating. And so appreciate your respect with the time allotments. We also ask that all comments be directed to the board and in a respectful manner, and we don't have any arguing or fights in this between us. This is we're always debating what's best for our libraries, and that can be done best through building up a constructive criticism if needed, aimed at the issues at hand. So with that, we're going to get started. Is anyone else, just to make sure, anyone who requested to speak has had any issues with the process? Is there anyone else who needs anything addressed before we get started? All right, excellent. Seeing that, I think we're ready to go. The first person up to address the board will be Kim Holmes.
Hello. I was in 6th grade when I read the first Babysitter's Club book, which featured Christy, who had divorced parents. This was revolutionary to me because in 1986, I did not know anyone else with divorced parents. This was the first time I realized the joy of having a book that reflected my own life back in me and made me feel less alone. I'm sure all of the book lovers in this room know that feeling. In 1990, Dr. Regine Bishop published an essay where she coined the phrase, windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors, to reflect the important ways children see themselves in books. I raised my kids in the libraries of Madison County, where the shelves were filled with mirrors, windows, and sliding glass door books, including beautiful stories about trans children, like Melissa by Alex Gino. Whether you know it or not, every library in the state serves a community where a trans child could be living happily with the support of their families. Hiding books about such children does not erase their existence, and those children deserve to see their stories in their libraries, on their shelves. I am proud of the Alabama libraries that I raised my children in. I am proud of the children's shelves that held books all across the rainbow spectrum for them to discover. I am against these administrative code changes because I believe transgender children, like all children, deserve the feeling of walking into their neighborhood library and seeing books that reflect their lived experiences on their shelves. There has never been a moment in history where we tried to erase a group of people and we look back on proudly. With all of the fear-mongering and demonizing of trans people in the media, we need their positive stories in our libraries now more than ever. Trans children and children with trans family members deserve to find books on their shelves that reflect their lives and make them feel less alone in this anti-trans political environment. We should not take that away from them by moving all books with positive examples of gender nonconformity out of the children's sections of our libraries. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Samantha Webb.
Excuse me, there's an echo. I'm having a little trouble understanding the sound.
Let's try it. You want to try cutting my mic while you're speaking? That may help.
My name is Samantha Webb, and I live in Monticello. I want to hear your. Cut her mic. This is Tyler.
It's all right. We'll take it if anybody gets it possible.
All right.
Yeah, there we go.
I want to voice my opposition as an Alabama resident and whose tax dollars support public libraries to the proposed code change. The proposed change restricts any material that, quote, positively depicts transgender procedures, gender ideology, or the concept of more than two biological genders. By the logic of that language, any material that represents negatively any of these topics is okay. This is rank viewpoint discrimination being enforced by a government agency. Like most Americans, I don't like being told by the government what I can and cannot read. I trust librarians to develop collections and set policies that will appeal to their own communities as a whole. And collections development is not the same as censorship, as was stated last month. The proposed change goes too far. It represents a government agency regulating public speech and access to speech. It infringes the First Amendment rights of Alabama citizens. It dismantles local control of libraries, making highly trained librarians into ideological mouthpieces rather than professionals who are responsive to their communities. It disrespects and disregards and discriminates against the parents of gay and trans kids and the kids themselves. It is anti-parents' rights. And no less importantly, this proposed change fails in its intent to protect children because, first of all, books that fall under its purview are not dangerous. They do not indoctrinate anybody to anything. That's not how people engage with books. And second, if you don't want your child reading them, don't allow them to read it. Please reject this rule for Alabamians' rights and protection of the First Amendment. Thank you.
I'm Angie Hayden, Alabama board mother and co-founder of Read Freely Alabama. This amendment is unconstitutional, it is gross government overreach, and it's unnecessary.
Parents already have.
We can't hear her.
No, we
Can I
can't.
they don't.
Reset clock. We can't hear her. It's worse than before.
The minor issues.
In and out, and it's a charge battery, this is full charge.
Is that better?
Yeah, try it.
Okay. Angie Hayden, Alabama-born mother and co-founder of Read Freely Alabama. This amendment is unconstitutional. It's gross government overreach. It's blatantly discriminatory, and it is unnecessary. Parents already have and always have had the right to supervise what their children read, and in a way that does not require open discrimination and violation of others' constitutional rights to do so. There is nothing inherently sexually explicit or inappropriate about transgender or non-binary people. You are free to disagree and parent your child otherwise, but not mine. Your bigotry should not be the required enforced default. I wonder what you plan to do when a child sees a living, breathing human being like the ones in these books. Do you feel you have a right to remove them from public spaces to shield the children? Banning books that positively depict trans people from our libraries by sneakily restricting their purchase goes against everything our country stands for. I suspect you will pass it anyway. And that this pretending to weigh all the opinions of the people is a bit of a farce. You will do what you've set out from the beginning to do, which is to enforce your own viewpoint on all of Alabama patrons and use the government to force librarians to other the ones that do not meet your approval. And transgender Alabamians are just the beginning. This state, its libraries, and its children deserve better, and they are all watching, and we will keep fighting for them.
Up next is Veronica Valley. Or I'm sorry, Valley. Veronica Valley. All right, and we'll come back at the end of the meeting for anyone who was not here, and give everyone a chance they came in later or to describe it. Up next is Dr. Jim Vickery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know three things about public education. The sine qua non of democratic government it is. It includes unrestricted access to books. And censorship of books, especially public library books, is inimical to public education. That's why the first right added to our Constitution forbade restrictions of free expression, now by any governmental body. Censorship clogs the pipes of public education and says some ideas aren't worthy even of thinking about. Censorship of any kind means that the books in our libraries would be ever subject to the whims of present activists and overrun by the political tides of the moment, to be reversed when that tide ebbs, and Mr. Wall, that tide will ebb one day. Today's materials concerning the LGBTQ community. Perhaps as many as 500,000 people in this state. It's not a small minority. Is the proposer of the statement at hand that you're considering really not aware that children are born every day in this country with indeterminate genitalia and whose genders are otherwise unclear? Is that not clear to whoever proposed this? If you adopt the proposed statement, you're not crafting rational, medical-based public policy. You're merely adopting a Republican talking point with a built-in contradiction. There's only one legally recognized basis for censorship of books about sex in our country, and that's obscenity. You can't censor public library books you think are inappropriate for children. That's the job of parents. The same job they express when they watch their children on the internet is no different here, and the parents should be taking charge of this. Why invite expensive litigation
Time,
on the point
sir,
of law?
please stop talking.
Thank you.
next, Esther Williams.
Good morning. I'm from Lee County, and I'm a retired licensed professional counselor. I was in private practice in Auburn for 24 years. Before that, I spent 25 years in public education as a middle school teacher and guidance counselor. During that time, I worked with literally thousands of children and teens, and yes, some of them identified as LGBTQ. I can assure you that none of them chose that identity because of books they read. All of them knew they were different from a very early age. None of them chose to be gay or trans any more than their peers chose to be straight. These kids are beautifully and wonderfully made. I wish you could realize the woundedness and the pain these children face. If you even had a glimpse of the way they are treated, you would not be moving these books. The pain is not because of who they are, but it's because of the way they're treated and people not understanding who they are. They are marginalized and demonized by the very people who should be supporting them. When you move books that display them in a positive way, you're telling them that they are wrong for being who God created them to be.
Hallelujah.
Now, I hope that some of this would change your hearts and open your mind to the impact that this amendment will have on children struggling with being different. But I really doubt that'll happen. I'm a lifelong Christian and I take my faith seriously, and I've read and studied the Bible all my life, and none of Jesus' teachings condemned people who were gender non-conforming. But Jesus had harsh words for the Pharisees who thought they were better than everybody else. And as a Christian, all I can say is, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing.
Can we stop the clapping, please? Hey guys, hey everyone. Please stop clapping while somebody is speaking. I understand you all are very enthusiastic about this. That's fine, you clap at the end of it, but you're drowning out what the person is saying while they're speaking. Thank you.
Well, and especially for those online who are watching online. And I didn't want to, before we move on to the next one, I also want to highlight, there was a request for, as well as the live streaming, for the video to be recorded and put online. That is being done. So we want to make sure of that. All right, so moving on, next up is Alex Pignon.
I was one of those kids. When I was 14 years old, a classmate found my suicide letter and turned it into the principal of the school I was attending. For the 2 years up to that point, I had been screaming for help from the other teachers and adults around me. I was being visibly bullied for coming out as queer. I was spending gym time sobbing in the bathroom because I was being bullied in the locker room and felt so disgusting in my body, I just couldn't stand to be there. And the gym teacher told me, get over it and get to class. Getting to class is more important. Being shamed, I attempted going to a couple churches, and every single one of them shamed me out of there, telling me that I was going to go to hell if I didn't recant being queer. Being shamed did not save me. Being repressed did not save me. What saved me was gender-affirming care. What saved me was reading literature that had people like me in it. What saved me was finding other queer folks who had the opportunity to grow up to be queer adults, which not all of us get, and the numbers show that disproportionately. Teens like me don't survive. I didn't think I was going to see 30. I'm going to turn 36 next month, and that's extraordinary to me, because of the suffering that I endured and tons of other teens like me endured. This administrative code is just going to make it explicitly okay to continue to torture and suppress
teens like me and rob them of the opportunity to become an adult who is successful and happy and finally feeling like a worthy human being in my body. Don't pass this code.
All right, up next is Rachel Homeland.
First off, Christ is King. God doesn't make mistakes. Gender ideology is disgusting and dangerous and deadly. There's a reason why these kids are wanting to commit suicide, and studies show us that it's not because of non-acceptance. They're accepted in the world. We live amongst the world. As true Christians, know what that's like. But I'm not here to talk about them. I'm here to talk about the detransitioners. Nobody wants to talk about them, the victims of gender ideology, and these are the ones that are still with us today. They are completely demonized, like Maya Poet. If you don't know her, look her up. She's a strong young lady who went to the library and found books on gender ideology. And that's what convinced her to ruin and destroy her life and mangle her body. Nobody wants to talk about the detransitioners. Strange. I do, because they are important, because they are the true victims. And our children in Alabama do not need to be subject to this dangerous and disgusting and deadly ideology. Please continue to protect our children. You've been doing such an excellent job. I'm so proud to be here in Alabama. I'm so proud to be here and speaking today. Let's continue to protect our children, and let's also support those that see the light and that are detransitioning from this horrific experiment that we're going to look back upon and realize how disgusting it really was. Thank you for all of your time.
All right, up next we have Elizabeth Williams.
Hi again, Elizabeth Williams from Fairhope, Alabama, and I drove all the way up here today to urge this board to reject this unconstitutional amendment. I think it's great there's a public comment period before changes can be made to the admin code, but I want to remind each of you that rights are not subject to referendum. It doesn't matter how many letters you may have gotten from people who think viewpoint discrimination by the government is perfectly acceptable. Those people don't get to waive the First Amendment on behalf of all Alabamians. There was a time when many people in Alabama thought that anti-miscegenation laws were perfectly acceptable. And when this book, The Rabbit's Wedding, came out in 1958 about a white bunny and a black bunny getting married, well, a lot of people were really upset. They worried that kids might stumble upon this book and get the idea that it's okay for white people and black people to get married. They were so worried about protecting the children from such inappropriate and illegal ideas that they got a state senator on their side and organized a pressure campaign against this very institution. But the APLS director at the time, her name was Emily Reed, she said no. She said diverse viewpoints belonged in Alabama libraries, even viewpoints that upset some people, even viewpoints the government disfavored. About 10 years ago, they wrote a play about her. It's called Alabama Story, and so far it's been performed in over 75 cities across the country, including here in Montgomery. In that play, APLS is the hero of the story, standing up to political pressure to censor books about bunnies in love. And now here we are 60-something years later, trying to decide if it's okay to censor books about a crayon in the wrong wrapper. History is never kind to censors. And I want each one of you to think about how you want to be remembered. When they write this Alabama story, will you be the hero or the villain?
All right, next up we have Tanya Sutherland.
So on December 4th, 2024, Chase Strangio made history as the first transgender lawyer to argue before the Supreme Court in the case United States versus Scarametti, which sought to overturn a Tennessee ban on sex changes for minors. He lost. Chase submitted his evidence to the Cass Report. This 400-page, peer-reviewed study on gender identity services for children was commissioned by the National Health Service of England and published by Dr. Hilary Cass, an expert in the field of gender care for minors. Here's a quote from page 195 of this study. Tragically, deaths by suicide in trans people of all ages continue to be above the national average, but there is no evidence that gender-affirmative treatments reduce this. Such evidence as is available suggests that these deaths are related to a range of other complex psychosocial factors. When Justice Alito asked Chase Strangio about this, Chase was forced to admit that there is no evidence that gender-affirming care reduces suicide among these children. So the rallying cry of the people defending these practices, kids will die, isn't even true. Dr. Ritu Kaltiala, described as Finland's leading expert on gender pediatric medicine, found that 4 out of 5 gender transitioning children, or gender questioning children, eventually accept their bodies if no medical interventions are carried out. 4 out of 5. Citing the data from 12 different studies to support her claim. Most of these kids just grow up to be gay if they're left alone, which makes the prescription of cross-sex hormones to children nothing more than chemical conversion therapy. How are people who claim to be pro-gay rights okay with this? Now, I follow some people on social media who have transitioned and it worked out for them, but they were adults when they made that decision, and they acknowledge the permanent harm these treatments have caused them. Such complaints as medical dependency for life, osteoporosis, sterility, and loss of all sexual desire and function. Children are impressionable. And when you put books in front of them all covered in sparkles and rainbows, painting gender transition as a brave, fun, and noble thing to do, and not telling anything about the side effects, how do you think they're going to respond?
You're done.
I got it.
All right. Up next, Ted Halley. Ted Halley.
We're ready to go?
Yes.
Good afternoon, my name is Ted Hawley. Thank you for letting me be here. As the lady talked about earlier, I am a detransitioner. I've done it all. I went as far down the road as you can go. Won't go there, but anyway, the point is that I could have my fellow detransitioners here, we have a different attitude. But I want to point out that the idea of transitioning is not true. Your gender is assigned at birth. You cannot change it. You can change the way you look, but you can't change who you are. So with that, children are innocent, and they're impressionable, and we can feed them truth, or we can feed them inconsistent stories. I would say also that pointing out that there are groups such as Gays Against Groomers, Courage Coalition, Lesbians United, Our Duty, that fight the transgender agenda. They fight it, but they aren't gay. In our libraries, we need to do what is right for the children, not for what we as adults think is right. The truth is, no child is born in the wrong body. We can have books like Friday Girl that tell the truth. Little girl thought she was a frog, got the truth, and affirmed who she was. Or we can have books like this one that tell you you can be a girl in the morning and a boy in the afternoon. No, that's not true. Or we can have books like this that tell our teens with pornographic pictures that should not be there. So I would ask the library, do what is right for the children, not what adults think is right. Let's get these out of our library. Thank you very much.
right?
Can we do anything about the audio? There's a lot of echo. I was here last year and I could hear every word. It's not clear at all. It's very hard to understand what people are saying. Can the audio people work on that?
It cannot. Unfortunately, this room was not meant for this amount of people in here, and we're doing the best we
In
can.
May of last year, I could understand it.
I don't know what to tell you. I know that I've worked with IT, and this is the best we can do.
Okay.
It's the same system, we just have the hard walls on both sides where the sound is just bouncing back.
Something's different from last year, though.
All right. It may be just the increase in volume from a larger crowd. I'm sorry about that. Either way.
Yes, I'm for the proposed rule change to the administrative code. It should be common sense that material that promotes, encourages, or positively depicts transgender procedures, gender ideology, or the concept of more than two biological genders is inappropriate for children and youth. However, if one does not have a moral compass, it is impossible to determine what is appropriate or inappropriate for minors. The transgender and gender ideology movement is pressing its agenda everywhere, including our public libraries. An example of a book in our public libraries that promotes this agenda is Being You, a first conversation about gender. It is a board book for children, including toddlers. The authors state that it's never too early to begin the conversation about gender. Contents include, it is okay to wonder, am I a girl, am I a boy, am I both, am I neither? There is no right or wrong answer. It is okay if the answer changes. Other examples in the children's and youth areas include a kid's book about being transgender, gender ideology, gender identity for kids, I'm not a girl, binary, coming out as transgender, the pronoun book, and there are many more. It is heartbreaking. This propaganda that they can change their gender is being pushed on minors by radical activists and is having lifelong horrific consequences. It is an evil lie. A boy can never be a girl, and a girl can never be a boy, and a boy can never be a girl. The truth is that God created man in his own image, and he created them male and female. No matter how advanced trans pharmaceuticals and surgeries become, the biological reality of man and woman cannot be abolished, and the natural limitation of God's creation cannot be transcended. These materials have no place in our public libraries. God help us.
Up next is Sheila Johnson, or Leslie Johnson, I'm sorry.
Well, good morning again to the APLS board. Thank you for hosting us today. I want to say that our country is truly in disarray, and I'm one that's also in favor of the proposed rule change to the administrative code and respectfully request that sexual orientation be added. This rule change should be included concerning written selection material for our minors. I'm asking that these materials be removed from all areas of our public libraries, not just the children and youth areas. No tax dollars should be used to purchase, sell, or maintain these materials. The proposed rule change is in alignment with the presidential executive order of our country and state laws that have just been passed this year. And more importantly, the Word of God says that He created male and female. And that's Genesis 1:27. I am requesting the administrative code be amended to include the recently approved APLS definition of sexually explicit. It should also clearly state that the use of these sexually explicit topics in any library material, including books, ebooks, DVDs, and videos for minors, will automatically require removal from the public library once they're identified. No challenge by the public should be required for the removal of materials containing obscenity, sexually explicit, or other materials deemed inappropriate for children or youth. This is not book banning. These books are still available for purchase, and many of them are available online. This is about protecting our children and grandchildren from activists with an agenda to target and indoctrinate them with false ideology and sexually explicit material. Thank you.
Up next, we have Dallas, what was it? Valio.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, I you would think I would remember your name at this point, wouldn't you?
I would think so. This is my 4th appearance, so everybody should be familiar with me.
Sir, please just start when the time starts.
You ready?
Ready.
Let's go. We'll go. Okay. All right. In considering these changes to the Alabama Code, it is appropriate that this board and its individual members justify this change. I haven't seen any of that. So I ask each board member in turn to explain why this change is necessary. And Mr. Wall, will you give them all an opportunity? And we've got a minute and a half left, so will someone please speak up?
Well, I think I will speak at the end on some thoughts, and I think I speak to the board when we say, we want to look at some of the written comment period, and we have some time before we make a final decision on the exact wording and content. So, look, we're still very much in the process. So, I will give some comments at the end once I've had a chance to hear all four.
My time's running. You're interrupting me. Okay. Well, that's true.
It's an old thing. When you're invited, don't invite what you don't want.
Let's get back to this though, because you've taken this position. You've made the code change, so you must be backing it. So let's hear from you. I mean, you're going to listen to us, but you made the code change. So why? No one speaks up. Evidently, y'all don't know.
I'll address it at the end of the meeting, but I don't want to eat it in your 2 minutes. You only have 2 minutes normally if you have it.
Well, this is the only thing I have to say. I'm giving y'all this time. You see, I had 2 minutes. I was throwing a hurry. And I'm still waiting. Is anyone going to speak up? I see some smiles, but I don't see anyone speaking up. There has to be some way that this is justified.
Yes, sir. All right, up next, Autumn Zillman.
Good morning, members of the APLS board. My name is Autumn Zellner, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Fairfield Public Library and against the code changes. Libraries exist to provide access to information, ideas, and creative works. Their mission is not to decide what is appropriate for everyone, but to make resources available so individuals can choose for themselves. People should have the right to read, view, and learn from materials based on their own needs, beliefs, and curiosities. Libraries are neutral providers. Censorship is the removal or restriction of access to ideas, books, or information, often by governments, institutions, or individuals in power. The defining feature of censorship is that it takes away the right of individuals to decide for themselves. It represents control rather than freedom. It's anti-American. The Fairfield Library has done exactly what this board has asked. Policies and procedures have been updated, rules have been followed. Every challenge brought before the library has been handled according to the published processes, reviewed carefully and transparently. And yet, despite full compliance, funding has still not been restored. Instead, we are met with new conditions and new demands, particularly surrounding books that have already been reviewed and found to be properly shelved. This is not accountability, this is punishment. Let's be clear, libraries exist to serve everyone, to reflect the broad and beautiful diversity of our communities. That includes families of all faiths, all backgrounds, and yes, all identities, including LGBTQ individuals. Restore Fairfield Library's funding,
honored and reaffirmed that the APLS stands for literacy, not censorship. Thank you to Mr. Snyder for being the voice of reason.
All right, up next we have Julia Cleveland.
Yes, I support the proposed rule changes, but respectfully ask that all transgender sexual orientation and gender ideology be removed from the library, not just moved around. I am requesting the administrative code be amended to include the recently approved APLS definition of sexually explicit. We have every Alabama law needed to support this request, and our governor says Alabama recognizes there are only two genders, male and female. Trump's executive order recognizes only two sexes, male and female, as fixed, biologically determined realities. The executive order also states that federal funds shall not be used to promote gender ideology. I'm a Republican woman, an Eagle Forum member, and what showed overwhelming public support to me was that not one person did not want to sign the letters to take the books out of the library, not just move them. Over 20 pastors signed the letter of commitment to ask that the books be removed. They signed the letter, they informed the congregation, they allowed letters to be circulated. Many counties participated. Republicans, Democrats, Baptists, Methodists, Presbyterians, Church of God, Church of Christ, Catholics, Independents, Blacks, Whites, Hispanics, everyone, every age, young, or not everyone, I apologize, but every age, young and old. We had teenagers that came to us and asked, could we sign the letter, transgender books and sexually explicit books do not belong in the library. Removing trans books is not book banning. The ALA, Read Freely, and librarians use this word to inflame the public and incite fear. Book banning prohibits books from being printed or sold anywhere. The overwhelming majority does not want their tax dollars to be spent on these books. Board, please do not fall for propaganda words. Protecting children is not book banning.
Thank you. Up next, we have Ann Amador.
I'm here today to speak about our transgender illusion change, the destiny of my brother Victor. He seemed to be a normal child. My parents saw a drastic change in his thinking in middle school. Later they found out a male teen was sexually assaulting him. During his teens, he spoke about changing his identity. As a teen, he began illegal hormonal shots without my parents' consent. Hormonal therapy began, then female transitional surgeries were done in his early 20s. Without my parents' consent, which required life-altering transitional medication maintenance. These medications caused heart and kidney failure, and at the age of 30, dialysis began. Then at age 42, a kidney transplant, anti-rejection medications were added to his list of medications, then a heart pacemaker. Hundreds of hospital stays became normal. He said to me, after all the surgeries, I don't want this anymore, but there's no coming back. As he lay knowing he was dying, slowly he cried out to God and said, I renounce my female body because I know I am a man. Transgender surgery, lifestyle, and medications killed my brother, but he did not know how to go back. I'm here to request that our Alabama public libraries, in compliance with President Trump's executive order, states that federal funding shall not be used to promote gender ideology and identity, which includes transgenderism. Alabama state law, which is a woman, what is a woman bill, states that Alabama recognizes only two sexes, male, female, and it's codified into law. I just want to say, my brother is gone because the public does not tell these children that are transitioning, that the medication is forever and it kills you. You die.
Up next, we have Tracy Gatewood.
Good morning. I'm here to voice my support to amend the state code to safeguard children and teen library sections from promoting transgenderism, transgender procedures, and gender ideology, because this is common sense. If someone hands a 10 or 12-year-old child a glass of scotch and insists they drink, we know the child's reaction will be one of distaste and revulsion. If the child is repeatedly asked to drink and over time acquires a taste for alcohol, even becoming intoxicated, we would all agree this would be disgusting, even abusive. When seeing photos of Muslim men in their 30s or 40s standing next to their 12-year-old child bride in a wedding dress, it's natural for a healthy person to be disgusted. This practice is condemned as child sexual abuse. Physical and emotional damage is likely irreparable. When children are exposed to material that is sexually charged or as unnatural as making them question who or what they are, they're unable to properly process it. The impact is not immediate like intoxication or worse, or rape, but it's far more subtle as the damage from emotional chaos and confusion takes time to manifest. Just as a child recoils naturally from the taste of alcohol, or the 12-year-old has no ability to provide proper physical or emotional support to an adult, children are not wired to accurately process adult content, even when packaged in, for children, because children are pure. I vigorously oppose allowing sexually explicit content to be available in our public facilities or libraries. My statement is consistent with President Trump's executive order dated January 20th, 2025, defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring the biological truth to the federal government.
Next up is Martha Sham.
Thank you. Thank you. Please codify into law these conservative restrictions to stop the filthy Sodom and Gomorrah images that are now flooding the libraries. The path to HIV and AIDS, it isn't curable. And same-sex fake marriages, heck with 2015, quote, laws, that's the path of evil. It is decadence and misery, and it's against all of our Alabama Christian values. Our ideals, my ideal, is same-sex for marriage. These are high ideals. No one's perfect. The divine plan, though, is for Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And please keep laws in place that safeguard young, pure, innocent children who are chaste and don't understand lust. Keep protecting them with these codes amendments from lies about gender. Codify into law and protect the children from homosexual degradation. Auburn Public Library in Lee County has so disappointed me. They are now a cesspool. They violated the public's trust. This is what we're dealing with over there. Abomination, it's called, in Leviticus 18:22. Same-sex romances are outpacing the natural and normal romances. Vile affections, the church calls homosexuality inherently disordered. It does not help society at all. Here the books say, put for the children to see. 2 dads holding 2 boys. 2 fathers.
next is Debbie King.
What was on the board so that everybody could see what it was?
All right, and you're welcome to show that, but let's continue with the public comment. Debbie King, you have the floor.
Thank you. I came to share truth for the sake of our children and youth. God has a plan, and He said it was good. He created men and women in order to populate His world. However, that plan cannot be accomplished when humans deviate from His design and His will. Some books in our children's and youth department promote the idea that a boy or girl can choose to be something other than what God created them to be. Please know that I love people. Because of that, I feel a responsibility to speak truth according to His word. As caring adults, let us make every effort to protect God's children from images and transgender ideologies that will cause them confusion and lead them to possibly veer away from God's plan. John 3:16 reminds us that God so loved the world that He gave His only Son, that whosoever believes in Him should not perish but will have eternal life. Though God has a plan, man has a problem. All of us have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Transgender ideology is one evidence of this sin problem. My heart hurts for you if that's your belief. But it also hurts for the generation that's being bombarded with this type of philosophy. The good news is God has a provision. God demonstrated His love toward us, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. It's His grace that saves us, and man does have a choice. If you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you will be saved from sin. These words are not my words, they are God's words. Jesus Himself said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I'm asking this board to ensure that our public libraries no longer have books suggesting to young people that they have the right to choose if they are a boy or a girl. This choice goes against God's plan. My hope is that each of us will find our true identity in Christ.
All right, up next is Cindy Battles.
Morning. Sex and gender are words used to categorize males and females. Excuse me. By chromosomes assigned at conception, scientifically based on our DNA. The word gender today is being used to portray an emotion that describes how a person may feel or how they may like to be characterized. Using this definition, our libraries contain many books teaching our children that they can choose to be a boy or a girl, both, neither, or that they can change their gender from day to day. This is too confusing and not scientific. A certain group of people argue that everyone should be able to see themselves in the library. Is this really their desire, or is this just a ploy to confuse and indoctrinate our children to advance an agenda that is emotionally and possibly physically harmful to our youth? What if a young person believes the lie that they can choose their sex and gender? What next? Does it end there? No, this is just the beginning. Two dangerous options encouraged by these books are puberty blockers and/or surgeries. Let's talk about one of these options, puberty blockers, and their effects on the brain. When puberty blockers are used, it doesn't just stop the body from maturing, it slows and stunts brain development. Scientific research shows that long-term effects of puberty blockers are lower IQ, cognitive impairment, increased emotional instability, impulsiveness, higher rates of depression, and an increased risk for addiction. As a former neuronurse, I find this very concerning. Why do we have books in our libraries that direct our children down this dark path that starts with a lie they heard while watching a cartoon, a commercial, or looking at a board book found in a public library when they were 3 years old? Because of the possible harm for our children associated with the transgender ideology, I ask our library board to remove any material that contains this language. Thank you.
All right, up next is Carissa Gallen.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I appreciate the effort that each of you has made to be here. My name is Carissa Callen, and I drove down from North Alabama this morning to say yes, please. Yes, please. I want more protections for minors within our public libraries. Last year, this board passed the code changes to promptly remove the sexually explicit books for minors. Thank you so much. While I have talked to young families who are ready to return to libraries with their kids, many are still concerned about the books being pushed for minors, which is why I'm here today. So yes, please pass the code, the proposed amendment to the Alabama Administrative Code that will ensure that those sections of each public library set aside for minors will remain free of inappropriate materials, particularly materials that promote the concept of more than two genders. This goes against settled science and teaches a lie. Materials that encourage gender ideologies. Children are too young, too moronic, as Bill Maher said last year, to understand this progressive dogma from these books that are pushed on them. Quoting Bill further, this is why endlessly talking about gender to 6-year-olds is not just inappropriate, it's what the law would call entrapment, which means enticing people into doing something they would not ordinarily do, end quote. Even liberals are waking up to the harms of this ideology. And third, materials that positively depict transgender procedures. We are living in a time where speaking the truth about who you are is treated as hate, and the lies about who you are paraded as compassion. It is not compassion to castrate a child or to cut off the breast of a minor. Let me say again, that is not compassion. It is mutilation. And positive depictions of this, like the book Parts and Parts by Jensen Hilbrand, is not compassion. It's coercion, and it has no place in the children's sections of our publicly funded libraries. Thank you for your time.
All right, up next we have Leonard Schaefer.
Leonard Schaefer, Pratt Mill, Alabama. Thank you for your time. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed to our children to do the same. Ronald Reagan, 1961, spokesman for the General Electric Company. America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. Freedom is the bedrock of our nation. Freedom is not free. We must stand and fight for it to remain a free nation ran by its citizens. America is at a war today and need to continually stand up for and maintain our freedom. We've been in a spiritual war since Genesis 3. Satan hates truth, God, and free humans. He wants us all to be his slave. We are continually in a political war between destructive liberalism and conservative law and order. We're in a personal war to protect our family from evil in a world wanting to own the next generation. As a community, we must exercise freedom of speech along with the responsibility of discretion. Like movie theaters, discretion using movie ratings and limiting access, our libraries should do the same. Parents should be able to trust our public and school libraries to keep inappropriate materials from free access to minors. We cannot allow our adversaries to hijack the next generation by corrupting their minds while young and impressionable. I close with one point and one ask. Restricting material from the children's department and moving it to the adult department is not censorship, threatening one's freedom of speech. These materials are available in adult section as well as through other means. I ask that you support this amendment and enforce the state and federal laws to protect our children from inappropriate materials.
All right, up next we have Stan Sheridan.
morning, my name is Stan Sheridan. I'm married, I have 3 kids, I'm a business owner, and I'm also a Christian. I believe the Bible is absolutely true. First, I want to say a huge thank you to Ms. Carr. She's right over there. She's in the council for advice into your world. I've spoken to Ms. Carr and the team on the phone several different times. They've always been very kind and very helpful, and I appreciate that. Second, I want to give a quick word to the Christians. People that disagree with us are not our enemies. God loves them just like He loves us. Always ask the question, if Jesus was given the opportunity to speak, what would He say and how would He say it? That's our goal. Ephesians 6 says that our enemy is not flesh and blood, it's not people. Also, Christians, remember that our strongest voice is not before people, but it's before God in prayer. I want to encourage you not to just speak, but to pray. Finally, I want to speak to those that disagree with me. I believe that there are certain books that should not be in the kids section of the library. I went to a very successful music school in the Birmingham area, so I can share personal stories about students that have come to our school one gender, but they left another gender. I always loved them, and I always called them the pronoun that God created them to be. And because of my love for them as people, they kept coming back. They were confused, that they were broken, and they so badly just wanted someone to love them through this process. It was just a process. Psalms 147:3 says, God is the one that heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. What kids are experiencing is deep brokenness, and no dress, pronoun, or book in our library is going to change that. In closing, I am praying the decision makers today would do the right thing. I think you know deep inside what that thing is. I'm here because I love the world you guys represent the public library. My kids are raised there. I appreciate your hard work, your time today, and allowing me to speak. God bless you guys. Thank you.
All right, up next we have Will Sheridan.
You all hear me good? Hi, my name is Will Sheridan. I'm 17 years old, and I'm from Monticello, Alabama. And first off, just want to say a quick thank you for allowing me to come out here and speak. I'm going to talk to you about why we should remove these books from our libraries. I also just want to honor each and every one of you for all that you do. Just come out here every day and serve the Alabama community. Once again, thank you so much for all that you guys do. All right, I'm a young person who has seen for myself the pain this ridiculous trans ideology has caused for so many people. Amazing people, gifted, talented people have been brainwashed by these sickening books in our libraries. Look at the news, the shooting in Minnesota, the assassination and martyrdom of Charlie Kirk, all of this, because for far too long, these wicked leaders dilute the minds of young people into believing that they're this and that they're that, even though they're not. I've known many people who are struggling with transgenderism, and I will tell you, I have never seen more depressed, suicidal, and broken people in all of my life. Think about it. How does the trans ideology help them? According to the Trevor Project, over 35% of young people who are trans have attempted suicide in the past year, and over 44% have strongly considered it. And what do we do to solve the problem? We only add fuel to the fire by allowing these books to sit in public libraries. So as a young person, I ask you to strongly consider voting to remove these trans books from our libraries. It will only make the youth of Alabama better and stronger. And who knows, maybe the young people in this amazing state could change the world because you saved them from this trans lifestyle. Thank you, and God bless you.
All right, up next we have Emily Early.
Good morning. My name is Emily Early, and I'm the Associate Director of the Southern Office of the Center for Constitutional Rights, a national not-for-profit legal and advocacy organization with a historical and deep presence in the South, including here in Alabama. We are dedicated to protecting the rights guaranteed by federal and state law, including those that disproportionately affect lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, non-binary, queer, and intersex communities. Consistent with our organization's October 10th comment to oppose this proposed rule, I'm here today to express our organization's deep opposition to this public service library rule. 520-2-2.03. As to the legal, I want to remind folks that religion does not belong in state governance, contrary to the comments of many individuals who have spoken here today. I will speak today to both legal and policy grounds to oppose the board's acceptance of this rule. First, this rule likely violates the APLS's own 2019 regulations at Rule 520-1-1.01 and the Library Bill of Rights, which promote the freedom to read a broader range of ideas beyond those held by any single government, and prohibits the prescription or removal of materials because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. Approving this rule will weaken APLS's own mandates. Second and third, the rule will violate the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution by engaging in viewpoint discrimination and infringing individuals' rights to receive information. Third, the rule also likely violates the Equal Protection Clause by classifying restricted content according to sex-based stereotypes and while prohibiting the promotion of information that challenges those traditional stereotypes. Finally, on the policy front, the proposed rule will be deeply harmful to Alabama's already vulnerable youth, both transgender and cisgender alike. Thank you.
All right, up next is Barbara Whitener.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Barbara Widener, and I'm here representing Intercessors for Children and many other concerned citizens in the Dothan area. We've collected over 1,000 signatures to remove all pornographic books for children from our libraries. These books are still there, and they fill the minds of impressionable readers with nasty images and filthy language that cannot be erased. There is no delete click in the mind, so whatever is put in stays in and will influence each youth for good or evil. They are being indoctrinated to believe that anything goes. These pagan ideas further cement the false belief that there is no God, so all things are permissible. Not surprisingly, sexually transmitted disease numbers are rising to epidemic proportions among young people, according to the CDC. We believe that there's a correlation between these shocking statistics that they give and the availability of lurid, salacious material for minors. In the Dothan Library, new policies have been made that might appear to be in compliance with the code, but are in actuality giving minors greater access to harmful materials. A youth-only library card only allows youth under the age of 19 access to the children's section. But authorization can be granted by the parent to convert the card's borrowing privileges to youth general access. I'm quoting from the library's website. They can check out in the remainder of the library all the materials with the parents' permission. So parents can grant permission for this card and
All right, we now have Paul Garris.
My name is Paul Garris. I'm chairman of the North Shelby County Library Board. I support the administrative code changes. However, there's an additional change, the APLS guidelines that is needed to protect our children. In 2024, the APLS issued guidance related to minor library cards stating that libraries should, and I quote, approve written guidelines that establish library cards for minors under the age of 18 must require parental approval before a minor's card is permitted to check out materials from the library's adult sections, end quote. At North Shelby, we adopted a minor card policy to comply with the spirit of this guidance by adopting a minor card policy that restricts minor access to the library's adult sections. There's 12 public libraries in Shelby County, and we all share a library card system. Out of all the libraries in the county, we're the only one that offers a restricted library card to minors. The other Shelby County libraries only issue minor cards that have full access to all materials, including the adult sections, and they claim their policies have been cleared by APLS staff. I'm asking this board to issue new guidance clearly stating that if a library issues minor cards, they are required to offer a minor card that restricts access to the materials from the library's adult sections. I'm happy to consult with the APLS on how we formed and implemented our policy that gives parents the tools they need to help guide what materials their minor children have access to. After all, what good is it to move problem books to the adult section if the children still have access to it? Thank you.
I just want to be clear, you're saying that the libraries are refusing parents' right to choose a minor-only section card.
That's correct.
So they're only giving them one option.
Correct.
Even though the library system has the ability to do both,
because we're doing both, yes. Okay. And we have passed a resolution asking them to do it, and they have not done it.
All right. Thank you for it. All right. Up next, we have Robert Wilkins.
I appreciate you allowing us to speak today. It's a lot different than in Auburn because they would have different views, so I appreciate it. My name is Robert Wilkins from Auburn. I did not know what to say today until my wife, Joy, reminded me what happened 11 days ago. The birth of my 9 pounds, 11 ounce granddaughter in Mobile. I'll be one of the many guiding hands, not just as she grows physically, but mentally. I had an incredible number of hands over my lifetime for being a naturalized U.S. citizen from Germany, coming to Alabama a week before I turned 6 years old, adopted at age 5, spent from my age 7 to 10 in the United Methodist Children's Home in Selma, Alabama, then adopted again at age 10 in Alabama, Alabama. I'm here today for Alabamians to stop using the phrase, book nanny. Instead, use the phrase, books of appropriate age. I'm not here to preach about religion or your religion, but to protect our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren from reading books and material that have inappropriate sexual, explicit, mature material. I'm in full support of the Alabama Public Library Services Board and the strength of those things to change the administrative codes regarding publicly funded libraries in order to protect Alabama children. What is inappropriate, sexual explicit material should be clearly defined in the Alabama Code. Thank you very much.
All right, up next we have Susan Bolt.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Imagine with me, by using your mind's eye, imagine that you just walked in on your parents having sex. As an adult, I cringe. Now, using your mind's eye, imagine that as a child you walked in on your parents having sex. It would be traumatic. A child doesn't have the knowledge and maturity to comprehend what is happening, nor should they. The same is true for being exposed to these graphic and unnatural topics in our libraries. Children are not equipped to understand the actions or the emotions that are involved with and around the subject of sex. Yet there are books in our public libraries that are explicit and graphic and available to children and adolescents with no restrictions. These books can also be traumatic to a child and it steals their innocence by exposing them to this topic at an age prior to them being mentally developed. As adults, it is our responsibility to protect our children until they gain the maturity and mental development to understand the images they might see in these books. We place restrictions on things like drinking, smoking, driving. We outlaw sex until the age of consent. Why is that? It's not to be mean or flex the muscles of restriction. It is for the protection of our most precious asset, our children. Laws must be passed to ensure that all libraries are adhering to enacted standards because currently cities like Auburn are still making books available to children. I am asking this board to push for new stricter laws and require that these inappropriate books be placed in a restricted area that requires proof of appropriate age in order to access any book that covers the topics of sex, LGBTQ, transgender, and hormone replacement topics with the same restrictions placed on the Cloud Library and the Alabama Virtual Library. No book bans, just discernment, and preferably biblical discernment. Thank you.
Up next, we have Greg Davis. Greg Davis. All right. Dave Greenwald.
I'm sorry, I only made 6 copies. In case you can't hear me, you should be able to follow along. Sorry, that one not quite.
I can share that.
Thank you.
We'll try to fix that in the future.
Thank you for allowing us to speak today. Thank you, Dave Greenwald from Prattville. 3 years ago, a young boy was doing research on pronouns, English grammar studies. What he uncovered was a plethora of books with an underlying goal which seems to echo what this chant, which you might hear Dave Prattville says, "We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children." When someone tells you who they are, listen to them. 3 living DNA pairs determine the individual characteristics which make every human being unique. God created each of us with a specific purpose and plan. At conception, every human being receives either XX or XY chromosomes to determine male or female. Though some characteristics may be altered through diet, exercise, surgery, drugs, hormones, even injuries, nothing can change that which is immutable, indelible, and unchangeable, our sex and our gender. Telling a child that he can become a she or that she can become a he is simply not true. It is misleading. Charitably, we might say this is misinformation. More critically, we might say these are lies. Not on my watch. I want to go on record as saying I am absolutely opposed to any such books, not only because the information is false, but more so because believing and acting on this line of thinking is harmful. We see this in the heartbreaking stories of those who have gone down this path leading to discouragement, depression, and sometimes suicide. If you are trans or considering this option, let me say, trans is a misnomer. You can never transition from one gender to another. It's a setup for failure, disappointment, and discouragement. Be careful what you put into your body, drugs, hormones, submitting yourself to the surgeon's knife. Here we go.
Up next we have Mary Campbell.
Good morning. My name is Mary Campbell. I'm Library Director, President-elect of APLS, and a mom of a teen. I think you may remember I've addressed the board before as a mom. Today, I want to share with you my concerns as a librarian, as someone who serves the community. If libraries are no longer allowed to have books about trans and non-binary people on our shelves because those stories, even without explicit content, are considered harmful to children, then are trans and non-binary people also not allowed in our libraries? I think you know that we get in trouble for that. Should they be hidden away in our adult department, where the books about them are? Should we block them from our doors? Their existence can't and shouldn't be hidden away. They're humans. They exist. If they are, in fact, welcome in our libraries, and they will always be welcome because they are our neighbors, and they are our community members, and they are taxpayers. It's not only one group whose tax money counts. Trans people are not inappropriate. They're not inappropriate content just by existing. People who don't conform to gender binaries are not explicit. Their existence is not harmful to children. Their stories should not be hidden away in a corner of the adult department. Their stories belong just like they do. And it's not right to only tell one story. The story that they're bad and harmful. It's up to parents to monitor the time.
All right, up next we have Melissa Gates.
Hi, thank y'all so much for letting us speak. Melissa Gates from Mobile. I am a Republican and an Eagle Forum leader from Mobile, and yes, we still have these books on our shelves as well. I'm in support to codify the library material standards in the Alabama State Code. Also, we do not fight against flesh and blood, but principalities. I do have compassion for those that are confused and struggling with identity. I'm speaking as a me of 3 grandchildren, and we always talk about safe places for everybody else. What about a safe place for my grandbabies? A lot of these books are glittery. I brought the books. This isn't my first time speaking to y'all, so I didn't feel it necessary to bring the books yet again. I have spoke at city council meetings, not only Mobile, but Fairhope, where I was shut down. Speaking of these books, they're in the minor section. Duh. That should say it all. So, my last thing is, y'all know I always bring scripture. And so, this is from Isaiah 5:20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitterness for sweet and sweet for bitter. I pray for salvation for those that are lost. God wishes that none would perish. And so, thank y'all for letting me speak.
Up next, we have Chuck Shirley. Chuck Shirley. All right, we will move on. We have a replacement here where the mistake in the list of those, the board members of the list. Daniel Bennett, if I get your last name right. Yes, and it was properly emailed, they just got the name wrong on the list.
Good morning, friends. My name is Daniel Bannock. I'm a reverend and a pastor at Tapestry of Faith United Church of Christ, which is in Tuscaloosa. I'm the father of 2 boys and was born and raised in Mobile. As a child, I spent hours in the Mobile Public Library, which helped me find books and get a sense of the world, and often myself, such as when puberty was kicking in and that smell started in your body and we needed to get deodorant. Libraries, that's what they do. They open the window of our world and they help us get an understanding and find compassion. The proposed change amendments before this board, I fear, would close those windows of understanding and compassion by removing books that show positive portrayals of trans people, that would not be protecting children. It would be denying them the chance to see the full beauty of God's creation, that they are wonderfully made. For a trans child, or even that they might not have access to stories that say you are loved as you are. And it can be a lifeline. Removing those stories does not make the child less likely to be trans. It only makes them feel alone. And for other children like my own who do not identify as trans, those same books teach them what it means to love your neighbor, to see humanity as someone who is different. Because Jesus never turned away from those on the margins. He welcomed them. He dined with them. And he called them beloved. Our libraries should remain the same. One of the few places in our world for everyone. Because we're called to build a world where every child knows they are worthy of love and belonging. Let's not remove that place. And let's help them know that they are loved.
Next, we have June Shoemaker.
Hi, my name is June Schmoker. I am a Huntsville-born citizen of this great state, and I am here to speak in opposition to the proposed changes. I may speak in dissent for the decisions that our state has made, but as I have in the past, but do not mistake my frustration for lost love. Huntsville is my home. Alabama is my home. I have lived beneath Monticello my entire childhood and have a love for my city that grows with each year. I say this because it breaks my heart to see this state treat my family so callously, to debate endlessly on whether we should be allowed to be seen. These proposals suggest that children cannot know themselves because that knowledge is so improper it belongs behind a curtain. We are not pornography. We are citizens, neighbors, compatriots just like yourselves. I urge you to recognize this, and I thank you for your time.
Up next, we have Lindsay Gardner.
Good morning. My name is Lindsay Gardner. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here because I believe in the power of libraries to inform, empower, and reflect the diverse communities they serve. First, when you discuss code changes in November, please consider allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to get a library card independently. The requirement that minors under 18 need parental permission to get a library card is out of step with the legal rights already granted to 16 and 17-year-olds, such as to drive, marry, and even consent to medical decisions. Many 16 and 17-year-olds participate in dual enrollment college classes or even move away from home to attend college. These young people deserve to get library cards on their own. Moreover, the discussion around creating library cards restricted to the juvenile section is problematic. In the last round of code changes, the vague wording of many of the conditions created a lot of confusion and stress for libraries. It will be almost impossible to create wording that gives clear direction about restricted cards while also allowing libraries the flexibility to structure their collections most appropriately for their communities. If you dictate which collections library cards should be restricted to, then you have dictated how libraries should structure their collections. Local libraries and their boards should have the freedom to make those decisions without
without losing state funding. Finally, expanding the definition of inappropriate to include any positive portrayal of transgender people is a profound act of government overreach. Implementing this broadly worded directive would require librarians to spend hours scrutinizing books instead of planning programs or helping patrons. Please don't make libraries choose between state funding and serving the people in their communities. Thank you.
All right, up next we have Lori Herring.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. I'm Lori Herring. I'm with Eagle Forum of Alabama. I would like to address the contention that the curation of the library collection is the same thing as censorship and against the freedom of speech. Censorship by the government would make certain materials unavailable at all to its citizens. You couldn't buy them, you couldn't find them at all. In actuality, you can get just about any book through a number of sources. The open marketplace is available to all. In contrast, what we are proposing is called curation of the collection, something every person and collector of books do each time they add or cull their collection. There is a finite budget and a finite space to hold books. This is harm reduction, not viewpoint discrimination. Libraries have an ethical codes that are already permit exclusions for obscenity, inaccuracy, or incitement. Extending these topics to like gender ideology and kids sections protects the vulnerable users without silencing the adults. In fact, the American Psychological Association research links early exposure to contested topics to confusion or distress in children, justifying tailored curation. We as a society should be doing everything we can to protect the innocence of our children. No one should try to spoil that. It's just common sense. Thank you.
Next up, we have Carrie Richmond.
2 years ago, the podium was over there, and people were speaking this direction. We didn't have the audio process. Can we reset? Sorry about that. My name is Terry Richmond. I live in Trussville. I need to apologize to everyone under 50 for my conduct during the 60s. Me and my fellows accelerating decline in traditional values that spawned the question that brought us here today. Identity politics, the idea that individuals can have their own truth. Over the last 75 years, the American Library Association's task force on gay liberation has continued to encourage alternate lifestyles. Today, this task force is called the Rainbow Roundtable and remains dedicated to challenging the fact that heterosexuality is the default in natural sexual orientations. With national leadership of the Rainbow Roundtable, it is not surprising that the American Public Libraries, the Alabama Public Library Service, resists the idea that there's only two genders. Our society has come a long way since Genesis 5:12. He created them, male and female, and blessed them, and called them mankind in the day they were created. Our biblical illiteracy is causing us to lose a sense of who Americans are, where we came from, and how we came to be. Today, the question is whether young minds should be fed the idea that gender is a choice. Our answer must be no. More importantly, public libraries are not the correct forum for this discussion. Thank you.
I've had requests for a short recession. Recession. It might be in for a short recession. A short break here for the board for anyone who needs to take a bathroom break or others. So we'll take let's do a 5 or 6 minute break and be back at 11:50.
I want to say thank you guys for opening us up for this forum. I know it's been a hot year. You see it today. It's been a great challenge. Lawsuits. So important. Lawsuits.
It's French. I'm a registered nurse, 44 years. I have 3 grandchildren. Their ages 7, 2 of them are 7, and then I have a 10-year-old. I teach the 3 to 5-year-olds in church, and of course I use the Bible. The Bible's a very diverse book, but there's a way to teach them and a way not to teach them. Like I wouldn't take the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and teach it to 3 to 5-year-olds. I'm going to teach them about feeding the 5,000 with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, or Jesus healing the leper. But I'm not going to go into other parts of the Bible because it's not age appropriate. You know, we have to have guidelines for children. We have to protect their innocence. We have to guard them with our heart. So last month I brought a book. It's called, what was the name of it? Understanding Teddy. And Teddy was about a teddy bear that decided he wanted to be a girl teddy bear instead of a boy teddy bear. And that was in the 2 to 5-year-olds, which really bothered me. Finding that book in the library in Mobile there. I said, well, children don't understand about sex at that time. They're just beginning to learn their colors and learn their ABCs and, you know, about their parents. So we need to look at it in general, that we need to understand children and protect them. And that's why we need these guidelines approved for the library so that we can protect them.
All right, up next we have Elaine Wick.
Good morning. I grew up in Montgomery, and I attended high school at Lanier, just up the road. We were the City Lanier Poets. And on the way home from school, my friend and I frequently stopped at the Montgomery Public Library. And those were the trips that introduced me to works by the Bronte sisters, Mark Twain, Charles Dickens, many, many other classics. These classics were all shelved in what this policy is calling the adult section of the library. Our parents were at work, and under these rules, we would not have been able to read the classics, challenging reading that prepared me for the even more challenging reading assignments I faced when I got to the University of Alabama. And keeping children away from adult literature, especially the classics, is my greatest concern about this bill and this policy and the intellectual damage it will do to them and their futures and the future of our state. I'll mention that if 16-year-old me had wanted to read about sexuality, I wouldn't have checked out a book. I would have read it at the library. So that provision, I don't even think could do what it's intended to do. Kids are going to find the information they think they need, regardless. I also believe this is a local control issue because every community in our beautiful state is unique, and community standards do vary around the state. The language in this policy is too vague to be enforced. It expects librarians to decide whether a material positively depicts a topic, and that in itself is a subjective judgment. Librarians will be drawn into lengthy discussions of what is and is not a positive depiction.
Up next, we have Cheryl Corvo.
Good afternoon. My name is Cheryl Corvo, a Fairhope taxpayer, and I support our library and still am infuriated by this board and how you have failed to work with our library. I'm also here to say that this proposed amendment is transphobic, pushed by harmful, negative, extreme religious narratives, and clearly not about protecting children.
Hallelujah.
It's about controlling thought and pushing an agenda. It's censorship, whether you hear us or not, Nehemiah. It would force libraries to remove books with positive portrayals of transgender people or gender diversity. That's not parental choice, that's political interference. I and many other educated professionals in this room, those watching online, and countless Alabamians who have written letters reject this transphobic and government censorship amendment by Mr. Minton. Courts have affirmed that libraries are meant to be neutral spaces, places where every citizen can explore ideas freely without political or religious bias deciding what's unacceptable to read. Trans people are people of the United States. They live here in Alabama. They are part of our communities, and they are taxpaying citizens and deserve to find positive portrayals of themselves in the books on our shelves. And yes, so do detransitioners. Imagine if they too had been given the proper education, empathy, and affirming spaces, how different their stories might have been. My heart goes out to them. Sure, we can all go out and buy a book, but libraries are where access is free. They exist so that every person, no matter their income, background, or beliefs, have the right to learn, question, and grow their common sense. Mr. Wall, you earlier comment to the gentleman stated that you just need to adjust the word. And it sounds to me that you have already made up your mind about this amendment. Reminder, neutrality means inclusion, removing books, because of who they represent is not neutrality, it's discrimination. Even if my words fall on deaf ears, many of us will keep standing up for free libraries, free thought, and freedom to read and think.
Up next, we have Wayne Dozer.
Thank you very much. I'm in support of the APLS amendment, and here is why. Over the last 12 years, I have been privileged to serve as a volunteer chaplain for the Elmore County Jail. I've gotten many phone calls, text messages, private messages, emails, letters, and face-to-face conversations asking me to visit with their loved one or friend that is in jail. But these situations are not the same as the normal reason for a person being incarcerated. Most of the time, they are so embarrassed and will not tell me in front that they don't really know what to say or even ask of me other than to visit with this precious loved one. They would say just let them tell you what is happening or is happening. These are men from well-standing families, families that have been well thought of in their community, church, and in the business world. Most prisoners are in jail for drugs, alcohol, addiction, or theft. These are there for sexually exploited actions and have ended up getting sentenced 20, 30, 40 plus years. Research from Warner and Covenant Eyes, a national content filtering company, recently showed that 68% of church-going men and over 50% of pastors view sexually explicit material on a regular basis. And 44% of all women view sexually explicit materials regularly. I'm 83 years of age. When I was about 11 or 12 years of age, I was introduced to a Playboy magazine. I cannot begin to tell you of all the struggles that I've experienced by engaging these pictures and thoughts into my mind over the years. Thankfully, I later got saved and became a Christian. I've had the Bible, God's Word, to engraft into my mind and heart and prayer. I also have an accountability partner. I'm asking you today to please not allow any funding to our public library system that provides children's books with sexually explicit contents on their shelves in the state of Alabama. Thank you.
Up next, we have Corey Harvard.
Good afternoon. My name is Corey Harvard, and I'm coming here all the way from Mobile, Alabama on my birthday of all days.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I grew up in a little town on the Gulf Coast called Grand Bay. In middle school, they called me Preacher Boy because I carried my Bible everywhere. Around the same time, I realized that I was gay. I didn't know a single other gay person back then, but I sure heard about us from classmates, church, TV. What I heard was that we were perverts, inappropriate, evil. I believed those messages. I thought something was broken in me, and I carried that shame until college when I nearly ended my life. What saved me was coming out and finding stories of people like me, books and movies that said you're not alone. Those stories gave me something to hold on to. It's why I'm here. Because there are people saying that LGBTQ representation is inappropriate for kids, but you know it's actually inappropriate. Telling a young person that their experience and existence is something to be hidden. In 2023, there was a survey where 40% of LGBTQ youth in Southwest Alabama said they seriously considered suicide in the previous year, and 1 in 4 had attempted. Representation saves lives. It gives kids a chance to see themselves as worthy of love and belonging. I love that the library is a place for everyone's story, even the ones I don't relate to or agree with. That's what libraries are for. So I'm asking you to stand for access and to stand up for the kids who are waiting to find evidence that their story and their lives matter. Thank you.
All right, next we have Christine Ross, or Christine Jones Ross.
Yep. I'm on my way. Yes, my name is Christine Ross from Prattville, Alabama. Please adopt the amendment protecting minors from sexually explicit and toxic gender agenda books. The family must be protected from everything that wants to destroy it. It is the fabric of our nation. A child cannot unsee those images, and the opposition knows this. If not here, they know it here. It's all about grooming children for a gay and immoral lifestyle that destroys the very fabric of our nation. It is a mockery of God Himself that clearly made male and female from conception. As a state, our public libraries cannot allow total inappropriate, sexually explicit and dangerous gender indoctrination available to our children. Both myself and my husband, who couldn't be here this morning, want you to know you must protect our children. You must protect them. Thank you.
Up next, we have Bonnie Nelson. Neesman, all right.
I grew up in Prattville and I now live in Huntsville. I'm an educator. I do not advocate for burning or banning books. I am an educator. I know the importance of keeping children safe and emotionally healthy. I'm an educator and a gatekeeper. In August, I was in the main library in Huntsville. I was with my 5-year-old granddaughter. She's this tall. She wanted to check out a book in the children's section that had the rainbow flag on the front cover. I told her that we could not check out that book because the man who wrote the book stole God's idea of the rainbow colors. I went on to say that we don't read books written by people who steal ideas. I was being her gatekeeper. According to the dictionary, a gatekeeper is one that tends or guards a gate, a person who controls access. I was being a gatekeeper for my granddaughter. She is not ready for ideas adults don't even understand. You are gatekeepers for the children of Alabama. Your librarians are gatekeepers for their communities. How did we get to the place where our gatekeepers cannot recognize what's inappropriate or explicit? I'm an educator and I'm a gatekeeper. I am here to advocate for the children of Alabama who don't have an adult in their lives to help them choose an age-appropriate book. I don't want to ban books or burn books. I do ask that they be shelved in the appropriate places. Don't subject children to issues that obviously we don't understand or agree upon. Jesus said, "Woe to the world because of the things that cause people to stumble." These things must come, and they will come. But woe to the person or gatekeepers to whom they come. Be a gatekeeper. Thank you.
Paul Brasher.
I want to urge you to vote for the amendment. I think it will rule change, I guess is what you call it. I appreciate that. The reason I feel that way is because words are important. God created the world with His words. He spoke and everything happened. He created them a certain way. And yes, God loves the world, but He doesn't like us the way we are. That's why He sent Jesus to die on the cross for us. And because He died on the cross for us, we can be forgiven of our sin. We can receive Him as our Lord and find out who we really are. These kind of books, if they're not taken out, are going to lead other folks to be confused, hurt themselves, and literally take their lives at times. And the reason I know that is because I see that as a pastor. We've counseled with at least 3 or 4 in the last few years that were cutting themselves, and praise God because people cared for them, listened to them, spoke to them. They saw what was going on. They saw the difference, and they weren't confused. It breaks my heart to see people confused by the world. It really does. And I love everybody, I really do. But people need to know the truth. And Jesus says, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I'm the way to live. I'm the truth to live. And I will give you life if you follow me." And I just want to share that with you. I just want to say, hey, thank you for what you do. I pray that you will go with this rule change. And I pray that many lives will be spared and many young folks will be not confused anymore.
Up next, we have Matt Lane. Matt Lane? Oh, here. You're hiding behind those.
Right. As a library professional with over 20 years of service and an MLIS from the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, I speak today in strong opposition to the proposed amendments to Rule 520-2-2-.03. This unelected board of big government bureaucrats once again distinguishes itself by injecting extremist ideology into an agency that has long been apolitical and service-oriented. With these proposed changes, this board is crossing a constitutional line. The First Amendment expressly forbids viewpoint discrimination. The Supreme Court has made clear that the government cannot suppress ideas simply because some find them offensive or disagreeable. These changes do not protect children, they police ideas. And let's be honest, this board doesn't care about process or precedent. They care about controlling information, what you and your family are allowed to read, learn, and imagine. They will move forward regardless of the financial, emotional, or educational cost to Alabama taxpayers. So I want to speak directly to the families and individuals this board's wrong-headed policies will harm. To our transgender sisters and brothers, sons and daughters, and dear friends, to all members of the LGBTQIA+ community, we see you. Your voices and your stories are precious and essential. You have every right to find your stories told, shared, and represented on the shelves of the Alabama libraries your tax dollars fund. We as librarians will continue to fight for your First Amendment right to read freely and for libraries to remain safe havens and secure space of ideas and knowledge.
Up next, you have Gary Smith. Gary Smith. All right. Marilyn Eubank.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Mary Lynn Eubank. I'm a retired librarian, and I'm here today because I just have a couple of things to say. I am opposed to the amendment or to the changed language, and I think it's pretty telling that you've been fighting this battle for over 2 years, and we're just now at a point where you're actually going to be able to try and remove some books. That's because you really underestimated Alabama librarians and library supporters and what matters to them. They know these code changes will hurt the poorer communities among us the hardest because they're the people who rely on their state aid the most. They know it's absolutely un-American for the state to decide which books are allowed in public libraries. We know restricting access to books that show LGBTQIA life in positive ways is just the beginning of a deeper slide into banning more and more perspectives. Public librarians know better than to let politically appointed zealots grind them down. Librarians routinely assist the most ungrateful and difficult among us, most of the time in public libraries. You may pass this change, but librarians are going to keep putting the right books in the right hands because we know that reading is indeed a gateway drug. It's a gateway drug to empathy, critical thinking, and cognitive flexibility. Thanks.
Up next, Marion Borla. Marianne. All right. Alex Dollar.
My name is Alexis Ballock. I'm a healthcare worker from Huntsville, Alabama. I'm here to speak against the code changes. I grew up an eldest child of a pastor. My home was deeply traditional, and I was a model child. Topics such as sexuality and gender were rarely spoken of and not spoken of positively. At a young age, maybe 9 or 10, I started feeling that my body was not my own. I experimented with different clothing in secret. I knew nothing about what a transgender person was, but I still felt these ways. It wasn't until many years later that I opened a book and learned words to describe these feelings. My sheltered upbringing did not prevent me from being transgender. It caused me pain and confusion, not the other way around. I have been taking hormone therapy for 5 years, and I'm healthier and happier than I've ever been. God made me this way, and I'm blessed to be a transgender person. Thank you.
Up next, we have Rex Dane.
Good afternoon. My name is Rex Dane. I'm a public library director who's opposed to the proposed code changes before this board. These changes would weaken the foundation of Alabama's public library system, which is local control. Local library boards appointed by local governments exist so each community can decide what best serves its residents. When statewide rules replace local judgment, the trust between libraries and their communities is lost. The APLS board supports libraries, but is not their governing body. Using limited state dollars to pressure libraries into compliance erodes public confidence. Families already guide their own children's reading choices. What they cannot do, and what the state should not do, is decide what other families may access. Those decisions belong with local boards that know their patrons and serve them responsibly. I also encourage the board to amend section 520-2-2.03, subsection 2.a, to lower the minimum age for a library card without parental permission from 18 to 16. Alabama already trusts 16-year-olds to drive, work, and take responsibility for their choices. They can also be trusted to choose what they read. Please protect local control, preserve intellectual freedom, and reject these proposed changes. Thank you.
Up next, we have Madeline Register. Madeline. All right. Amanda Melcher.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Amanda Melcher. Thank you for giving me a few moments to speak. I'm a librarian and also past president of the Alabama Library Association. As I mentioned when I spoke to you last month, the code changes you've already passed have been very expensive for libraries and Alabama taxpayers. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. They have required an exorbitant number of staff hours to comply, and the majority of parents don't even want them. For more detailed information, please see the survey summary that I brought for the Alabama Library Association, and I'll give everyone a copy. Today, I urge you to reject the proposed amendments to the APLS, an administrative code that would lead to continuing waste of Alabama taxpayer money and further censorship. A book that mentions a character's gender, identity, or sexual orientation is not sexually explicit. Identity is not ideology. Compliance diverts resources from the very programs that our Alabama families depend on, such as story time, summer reading, job assistance, and digital literacy. These changes are biased, unnecessary, and politically motivated. Most importantly, they're harmful to Alabama families. They will strip away parents' rights to decide what is best for their own children. I beseech you, please keep partisan politics out of our libraries. Trans people are your family, they're your neighbors, and they're your friends. Please let libraries do what we've always done, serve every person, every family, and every community in Alabama. Thank you.
All right, next we have Christopher Warren.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Warren. I'm the director of the Houston County Library System, and I'm here today to speak in opposition to the proposed code changes. Every day, the incredible employees of our libraries work hard and do their best to serve our entire communities. Not just the majority of our patrons, but everyone. People of various ages, genders, family structures, sexual orientations, political affiliations, and faiths, as well as people with lived experiences that may or may not be like our own. This is all part of the DNA of our profession. And this is especially true when we think about our family, friends, and neighbors who may be marginalized or vulnerable on account of who they are, the least of these, so to speak. So for many of us, the current conversation hits a nerve. That said, I would ask you to imagine if the shoe was on the other foot. In other words, what if we were here today talking about code changes that would deem any material that positively depicts Christianity, capitalism, or heterosexual marriage as inappropriate for children? If this were the case, I can assure you that librarians would fight just as aggressively in opposition. So all this is to say that librarians don't have a political or social agenda, and our efforts to oppose these code changes and to build diverse collections should not be confused with one. What many of us are arguing for today is good public librarianship and in service to the awesome and diverse communities that we get to serve. At the same time, if that example above does not give you pause, then I would hope you have the self-awareness to realize that the proposed code changes are simply a bad faith effort to restrict access to viewpoints with which you disagree and information and ideas that make you uncomfortable. However you frame it, this is censorship. I hope that the APLS Executive Board will have the decency and good sense to reject these proposed code changes.
All right, up next we have Jake Bates.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. Since I'm towards the end, let's summarize the concerns that people have already stated. As a legal expert has already stated, you are crossing a constitutional line. The proposed code changes are clearly discriminatory, waste taxpayer dollars, and will open up lawsuits and fixes no problems. It violates the APLS's own mandates. It violates the First Amendment. This is book banning, plain and simple. But John Wall already knows this. However, John Wall is a politician and an opportunist. He has proven time and time again he can care less about this effects it will have on libraries. From day one, his primary goal has been to use controversy to build notoriety for himself so he can campaign for lieutenant governor. John Wall, the politician, thinks that he can use his position to force his own views on everyone else. I ask the board to make the only reasonable decision. Please do not choose to put us on a slippery slope to continue to censor books on the whims of the loudest and most ignorant. This will not stop at queer books. What is to stop them from banning book displays for Black History Month and Hispanic History Month? Where does it end? So we ask, stop wasting everyone's time on John Wall's attempts at building a name for himself and make the only reasonable decision and oppose these changes. Thank you.
Up next is Wanda Purvis.
Good afternoon. I'm number 64. So when I found that out, I was like, wow, 64, okay. Well, I'm a grandma here. And the reason why I'm here is because I'm standing for my grandson. He doesn't know what this is all about. And I would say, as I'm sitting here in this room is very deeply divided, just like our country is very deeply divided. But as a grandmother, it's my responsibility to be a watchman. I appreciate the gatekeeper, but as a watchman, we need to be those that are on the front lines to stand up against the evil that is coming in our day. So as a watchman, I lived through, from the 1950s, the Keynesian Institute that brought a lot of perversion into the normal, everyday lives of Americans. And I suffered through those years, and I would say that this kind of perversion has made pedophilia normalized, and the growing child abuse that's all around us. And this device, you can get any kind of perversion you want, but for our children, we're supposed to be watchmen. So I appreciate the fact that I have a chance to stand in front of you and make the appeal to do the righteous thing, to do the right thing for our children, because as someone else brought up the scripture, what Jesus said, there will be millstones. It would be better for a millstone. So that's what I have to say today. Thank you.
Up next, we have Amber Fry.
Curate. Select, organize, and look after the items in a collection or exhibit. Public libraries decide which books to add to their collections based on a collection development policy that balances patron demand, professional review, and community needs. Librarians consider a book's merit, popularity, cost, and relevance, while also looking at factors like author reputation, critical acclaim, and how the book aligns with the library's budget. By doing a quick Google search, I discovered there are several factors to curating a library's collection in the library. I would like to focus on two that are the most relevant to this argument. I have heard the opposition say that librarians discriminate every day by choosing which books to add to their collections and which ones to eliminate, but that's not true. Patron demand and community relevance are two of the main factors in curating a collection. Libraries track patron requests, circulation numbers to gauge interest in specific titles and authors. The collection aims to reflect the community's needs, interests, and demographics, including diversity of perspectives. Weeding a library is a process of moving outdated, inaccurate, or no longer useful materials. The weeding process is not a tool for you to demand the discrimination against a book of human beings that you don't like. The argument that libraries discriminate every day with their collection development is disingenuous at best. Libraries cater to the demands and needs of their community. They offer a wide range of varying perspectives for every age. The idea that people who just buy books is insulting and insinuates that only people with wealth should be afforded the constitutional right to receive information.
Up next is Gary Bill.
I'm here joining my fellow Alabamians who oppose this change to the admin code that openly discriminates against people who just want to live their lives like anyone else in the state. Our country was founded on the principle that it's okay for me to not believe what you do, just like it's okay for you to not believe like me. For you to not believe, like I do, that it's prideful and even sinful to put the creativity of an all-knowing, all-powerful God in a box of strict binaries when nothing in creation gives me evidence for that. Did you ever consider that censoring these books violates our religious freedoms? Probably not. I've heard people reducing our existence to nothing but sex all morning. It's like me saying I don't want representation of heterosexual relationships in the libraries because it sexualizes children. I mean, after all, when books show families with a hetero couple and kids, we all know as adults that implies they had sex. But it's offensive to reduce a family to that, right? Because we know that loving relationships are more than sex. It seems like some people in this room can't conceive of relationships and identities that look different than their own. And if that describes you, perhaps you should read a book about it. Because books and the stories they tell stand in for people. They represent the lived experiences of those who may otherwise know nothing about. To say that it's wrong for books about a group of people you don't like to exist on the shelves of your public library is tantamount to saying that we shouldn't exist in your town. But queer people do exist, and we've always existed. As German author Christian Hey wrote, when they have burned books, they will end in burning human beings. I urge the board to think hard about where they leave our public libraries and to not take this dangerous step in restricting people from openly existing in our state.
All right, up next is Terry LeBoyne.
Terry LeBoyne, and I'm here to support these policies and these changes to the policy code. It is disingenuous and simply not true to say that libraries are apolitical or neutral. There is a clear agenda, a political agenda at play, and families are fighting back. I've worked as a labor doula and a childbirth educator for many years, and as I am a fan of informed consent. However, these books paint a fairy tale fantasy without telling any of the real risks of harm. For these procedures, for the transgenders, there's much higher rates of meningioma tumors and cardiovascular problems. According to Psychiatric News, there was a meta-analysis analyzing 754 primary studies from 1983 to 2022. And among transgender and non-binary people, there's a lifetime suicidal ideation of 50%, lifetime suicide attempts 29%, lifetime prevalence of non-suicidal self-injury at 47%, 3.5 times higher than those who know that they're male or female. Not one of these books informs children of the real risk that they could be removed by DHR for not agreeing with their parents on this. We talk a lot, and we've heard a lot about love and compassion here, but is it truly loving to use taxpayer dollars to mislead and confuse children about things that can cause irreparable, lifelong harm? We need to tell the truth. We should not be allowing our tax dollars to continue to fund books that cause harm and confusion to our precious children. I've been fighting for families for a long time. I'm actually running for U.S. Congress on a platform of fighting for families, and I urge you to help families to fight back and protect our children.
Up next, you have Amber Ward.
My name's Amber Ward. I came and spoke about a month ago, and I brought up about Title 18 of the U.S. Code that talking about obscenity not being covered by the First Amendment. Further on in Title 18, Sections 2252, 2252A, talk about knowingly distributing materials containing sexual depictions or exploitations of minors. That can get you up to 20 years in prison. Studies show that early exposure of young children and youth to pornographic material increases depression, anxiety, and shame, just like what she was just bringing up. Exposure to violent and nonviolent sexual material increases sexual aggression later on in life. UNICEF warns that early exposure can, quote, lead to poor mental health, sexism and objectification, sexual violence, and other negative outcomes. These books are just the start. They're the open door for children to investigate these things before they're ready to comprehend what any of it means. It's clear that the Monroe Public Library system does not comply to the code that's already in place, nor will it continue to comply should you vote for this amendment. All of these books, there are over 150 books that are on this list that we have found that have sexually explicit material or gender ideology, trans content. And about 2/3 of those books are on the school library AR list. The kids can get AR points for reading these books and looking at these things. That's not right, and it should be the funding should be removed from the Monroe Public Library system.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go over the names. In case anyone didn't like them just earlier. The first is Veronica Valley. Okay. Greg Davis. Chuck Shirley.
All right, thank you. Yeah, my name is Chuck Shirley. I'm from Prattville. I want to speak in support of the proposed changes. If we're going to have libraries, they should exist for the good of the communities they serve. Providing good literature to the public has the potential to produce a more literate and educated society. Providing the wrong kind of literature, especially to children, will do the opposite. It will produce a society who fancies itself to be educated because it can decode words on a page. But literacy is much more than this. What you read matters, especially in childhood, because what you read influences who you become. Therefore, our libraries should see it as their mission to promote the reading of good literature to children. We must find the books that promote truth, goodness, and beauty, and make them available for our communities. Therefore, we have to take a position on what makes a book good. Is it good to teach children that boys can be girls, and girls can be boys, and thus being a boy means nothing, and being a girl means nothing? Is it good to teach them that it's impossible for you to be wrong about your gender expression? Is it good to teach them that if they sense incongruity between their perceived gender and their actual gender, they can mutilate their bodies to resolve it? Is it good to teach children that marriage is not between one man and one woman, but simply between two consenting parties? Perhaps you hear these questions and think, who is to judge? Whose idea of the good should we go with? The answer is that we should go with the one that makes the most sense. We can't observe the disagreement and conclude that no one is right. Just because people disagree on the matter doesn't mean they're both wrong. This is common sense. Thank you.
Moving on with that list, we have Gary Smith. Gary Smith in the room. And Madeline Register. And that concludes our list.
Excuse me, Melissa Hare.
What's that?
Melissa Hare. Oh, yeah, she was.
Oh, that's right. That was one of the ones you forgot. Melissa Hare, yes, you have the floor if you'd like to come and speak.
Also Elizabeth Martin.
Did she submit an email?
Yes, I did.
Okay. If you come over, tell them you take your urge check and you got the floor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Hare. I work as a family advocate, and I work with families when dealing with difficulties with DHR. One of the many things that as a parent we have to do, we have to protect our children. And a failure to protect is one of the biggest things that they will say in court. We have statutes in the state such as 13A 12 200.5, which says to give our children materials of harmful nature. It doesn't say whether it's sexually depicted. It doesn't say whether it's orientation-based, but things that could cause mental distress in children. That is grounds to remove a child from a parent. Now, one of the other statutes that I must bring your attention to is 13A.12.200.10. That is the statute that gives exemptions to libraries from this punishment. Our librarians cannot be punished for what our parents can be punished for. And I have helped many families when dealing with children with identity crises, because you might back your children in that belief, but not all of our DHR workers, not all of our state people back these beliefs. And under Alabama statute 26-1-6, it says we have a right to designate the upbringing, education, religion, and medical of our children without governmental interference. And I believe that to not pass something that would help protect the family as a whole would only hurt the family, and that would be overreach to not pass it, because this directly could harm parents to not pass this bill. Thank you.
Yeah, tell them you check it, she's an email, a time email.
Oh, gotcha.
Kelly can't say anything.
I can't say anything. And she has new glasses. Got it.
Yeah, if you'd like to come, you've got 2 minutes, and don't start the clock, and please state your name to the record, and have it spelled because I'm horrible while it's spelling.
I apologize for being late. There was an emergency with one of our church members this morning, so I had to help with that. My name is Elizabeth Martin. I'm a retired educator, and I'm the children's minister at Central Baptist Church in Argo, Alabama. All right, this is not about the First Amendment to me, but about the protection of children and the family. Children are our greatest treasure, and as such, they should be protected and allowed to enjoy the innocence of childhood and the freedom to develop into healthy, well-balanced adults. As responsible adults, we protect our children from the dangers of drugs, alcohol, abuse, and violence. Children are not allowed to vote, drive, join the military, own a firearm, or drink alcohol until they reach the age of majority. It is hoped by the time they reach this age that they have matured into young adults who can make beneficial choices for themselves. We don't start giving them watered-down tequila shots or limited driver's licenses at age 5, hoping they'll be able to handle the responsibility that goes along with that. We don't give them explicit instructions on how to become serial killers at age 8. So, there is evidence also to support that there is medical and scientific evidence to show that this leads to and encourages mental illness and breakdowns when they are exposed too early to sexual explicit material and transgender ideas. Long-term studies are still pending on final outcomes, so scientists and medical professionals can agree on the rightness of transgenderisms and the consequences of such actions. I have to ask, why then should we allow our children to be exposed to sexually explicit or transgender ideology material that leads them toward making decisions about their sexuality before they are mature enough to understand and accept all the consequences of their decisions? Children are not equipped cognitively, mentally, emotionally, physically, morally, spiritually, or psychologically to cope with exposure to deviant, harmful, often age-inappropriate, and indecent subject matters. As a Christian mother, grandmother, teacher, children's minister, and a woman,
I charge you the members of the board.
So that will conclude our public comment period. I didn't want to leave you all. I promised the gentleman from Mobile that I would address some things, and I want to. I feel like it is incredibly important that when the government body is making a decision, that you do hear from people of all perspectives. It's what makes the governmental process work. And I think it is important. And I want you to know that I came into this room with that heart. We may have different opinions of how to get there, but I hope the vast majority of our goals are the same. And I say that to say that from what I've heard from both sides, there are several things that I think we can agree on. And the most important one of those being that we want Alabama libraries to be welcoming places for people on both sides of this issue and of all backgrounds and all opinions. That's my heart. It genuinely is. I joined this board, was appointed to this board long before any of this controversy came up. And I took this appointment because I do love libraries. It had a great impact on my life. Growing up in a rural area where we did not have a lot of stuff, we did not have technology. I'm old enough in rural Alabama that I didn't have a smartphone growing up. I didn't have technology like we have today. And so I value our libraries. And I don't want anyone who doubts my love for our libraries to know that. I also want to highlight that we have a duty as government officials, as this board, to listen to both sides and to weigh both sides. And at the end of the day, to make decisions that we try to address the concerns of concerned citizens. This issue was not manufactured, it was not fabricated. This issue came up because concerned parents found material in libraries that concerned them. And that is their right and that is their privilege. These are their children, and they have the they have the right to be concerned over what they're exposed to. And not every parent can be with every child in every library. And so I speak for myself here, because I don't want to speak on behalf of the entire board, although I feel like our past code change highlighted this. My goal is to put parents in charge. And I heard that from a lot of speakers on both sides of this issue. And that is my genuine heart. I want parents to make the decision because local library directors, local library boards, this board, me personally as APLS board chairman, don't know what is best for your child. But you do. Yeah. And that's what we want to do is put parents in control of this process. That really is our heart. It is my heart. I know your library card system can be hard for libraries to implement. I understand that, and I want to hear from you over the coming weeks before the final wording on this is changed, because I want to address that issue if we can, to listen to the concerns of some of our libraries. That was put into the code intentionally, though, to return control and power to the parents where it deserves to be. Because what we're saying is we're going to move potentially concerning material for parents to a section where the parent has the power to decide whether their children does or does not have access to it. And that's it's the best we could do with a highly charged issue. And I feel like it is a common sense attempt. It is an attempt at common sense and to try to accomplish that goal that we talked about of putting parents in control of the process. So I want to thank you all for being here.
I think that.
Could you speak up? Can we get the microphone?
Yeah,
that would be good.
Let us no longer pretend this board's action previously under this proposal is not imposing censorship. That's what it's doing. It's politically motivated. It is taking away control from local libraries who are appointed by local governing bodies. And we're going down a path that is very unfortunate. We harm libraries tremendously by all of this controversy that never should have come to this board. It should stay at the local level. So, and today it showed how we were split, at least the way I headed it up. There were 30 supporting the proposal, 25 opposed to it. So, anyway, I didn't want to end without saying it's time
Thank you all for coming here. Once again, I know it's been a long drive, a few hours. As we have listened to all these comments, I want to thank each of you. I also wanted to give a report for those here, for the board members, as well as for the press, on the final outcome of the public comment period that ends today officially. Although the written public comments last date for submission was October 14th. I want to thank our staff for working tirelessly to go through 8,478 submitted letters. They were able to, this process working long overtime at night to get this done by this board meeting. I want to thank them for their tireless efforts. I appreciate them getting done in such a short amount of time. So the final outcome was 8,478 letters submitted. Of those, 6,782 were in support. 1,697 were in opposition, with a percentage almost exactly at 80 to 20%.
I think it needs to be pointed out that under the tally that we just provided, that up until October 13th,
Excuse me, Bob, can you speak into the mic?
I think it's important to point out that up until October 13th, there had been almost no comments made with respect to these proposals. It was on October 13th, John, that you had the Republican Party that you chair send out emails soliciting support. And that's when we received almost 6,000 responses. We received 6,000 responses in 2 days that were primarily formal letters.
So this was pre-decided, John?
So
John Wall votes for the fake ID.
I don't know exactly what the difference is here. I will tell you that I did not send out an email. If there are groups that did, and look, let's be honest, there were groups on both sides of this issue.
Yeah, but not as powerful as a political party.
So let's go to the numbers, because numbers don't lie.
Would anybody else on the
Unlike you.
Before the public comment, before that final day, when groups, and I kept track of this, I had kept track of this, there were multiple groups on both sides of the issue who brought in large quantities.
Is that not a conflict of interest, John?
So before October 14th, there were
You should be removed from the
873 submissions. The percentage before any mass boxes were brought in was 69.7 or 69.6 in favor of the code change, 30.4 opposed. Before any mass groups were brought in. Both groups from both sides brought in large amounts massive amounts of letters. Before that point, it was a 70-30 split. After the point when both sides brought in large boxes on the final day, which is allowed, it was 80-20. So there's not a significant difference between the natural.
There's no morality when you do shit like this.
That's
none.
just
You should
fact.
not be allowed to vote with a fake ID.
So I don't. So thank you.
Okay, separation of church and state.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to thank all of you again for coming. That is our final report. Any comments, any remarks? I value your input and would like to hear from you, even if it's criticism.
Then listen.
With this, we are adjourned.